Hey, welcome back. This week, I want to talk about carnal Christianity. Now we hear, if you spend any time in church or watch Christian stuff on the internet or whatever, some point the term's going to come up, a carnal Christian. And in the realm of Christendom, that term generally means somebody who's not doing what the pastor thinks they're supposed to be doing. In other words, it's a Christian that likes to watch R-rated movies, drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, goes out dancing, doesn't always go to church on Sunday, basically kind of living for themselves, not really doing the Christian thing. So the pastor will say they're involved in sin of some way, like they view those things that I just mentioned as some kind of sin. But what is sin? So let's take a look at what the Bible has to say about that. In the book of Hebrews, it kind of defines sin as anything not of faith. Anything not of faith. And in the 11th chapter of Hebrews is called the faith chapter. So that's a real good chapter to read if you're kind of curious about what faith looks like in action. There's a list of Old Testament characters and the acts of faith that they performed. So then if sin is anything not of faith, what is faith? Going back to Hebrews 11, right out of the chute, it defines faith. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So faith is that assurity that what you believe will come to pass. So then back to the carnal Christian statement or carnality. What is that? Carnal, the word we use for carnal is from the Latin, and it just means meat, or probably more fitting, the flesh. It means this. We're made of flesh, of meat. In Spanish, the word for a butcher shop, carniceria. So we see that it just means the flesh. So technically speaking, anything that you do that doesn't require faith, that you do out of the power of your flesh with your soul, is carnal. So getting up and going to school in the morning, that's a carnal act. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you go eat breakfast, you get your books together, you go off to school. That didn't take any faith at all. So is it a gross sin? I wouldn't say it's a gross sin, but by the strictest definition of sin, it is sin. And sin is like, another definition of sin is missing the mark. But that act didn't require any faith at all. Going to work, going to your job, generally doesn't require faith. It's something almost on autopilot. You do it by rote. Your body knows what to do. Mowing the lawn, washing the car, fixing the meal at the end of the day, doing laundry. None of these things require faith. To further highlight this, most of the stuff that goes on in church doesn't require any faith. Showing up to a service doesn't require any faith. Sitting there, listening to the announcements doesn't require any faith. Singing some songs about God doesn't require a lot of faith. Listening to the pastor's sermon requires zero faith, okay? What does require faith? And before we get too far away, let me throw this in too. Also in Hebrews 11, the faith chapter, we read that without faith, it is impossible to please God. And it goes on to say because you have to understand who He is, or you have to believe in who He is, and that He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. So the question is God unhappy with the things that we do in our out of our own strength, out of our own flesh? Not necessarily. I mean, there are good behaviors and there's bad behaviors, but the things that really please Him is the things that require faith. And in Mark 16, we read the list. These signs shall follow them that believe. They will chase out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands, and the meaning of that is they're not going to get bit, they won't die. They can drink poison and it will not kill them. And lastly, they'll lay their hands on the sick and they will get well and recover. This whole list is really things that absolutely require faith. Impossible to do just out of your own strength and in your own power. Now, I guess you could argue that you could pick up a snake, but I think the inference there is that in handling the snake, it's gonna bite you and you're not gonna die. There was an account where Paul was shipwrecked, swam to an island. When he got there, the villagers came to see him. Paul was gathering some wood to build a fire, and a snake came out, crawled up and bit him, and he kind of shook it off into the fire. It was a deadly snake, and so all the villagers kind of stood back. They're like, yep, this guy's gonna blow up and die any minute now. He's gonna blow up and die. And he didn't. And so in the context of that list, that's the kind of stuff it's talking about. And coupled with drinking poison, poison as a whole won't harm you. In my life, I take that to mean that I can also eat poison or poisonous food, because a lot of the food we eat is really toxic to humans. You know, like aspartame and stuff like that. It's really a neurotoxin that they put as an artificial sweetener in a lot of products. So I typically avoid it if I can. I don't drink diet sodas and stuff like that. But if somebody gives me a diet soda and that's all there is to drink, I'm gonna drink it. And in faith, know that that doesn't have any effect on me. So getting back to carnality, everything that most of the church does is out of the power of their flesh. When somebody in the church feels like, hey, God is prompting me to go on a missions trip, the first thing they do is they check their bank account. Do I have enough money? Do I have this? They check their visible, tangible supplies before they decide whether or not they can do it. That is carnality. That is a perfect example of doing things in your own flesh by the provision that you can measure with your eyes right now. Instead of faith looks like, whoa, God's calling me on this missions trip. I'm going. I'm gonna book my ticket, I'm gonna go. If I don't have the money to pay for it right now, it'll come because God told me to do it, and that's the truth. Whatever God asks you to do, He's going to lay the provision for it. It's generally not laid at your feet before, but on the path, on your way, as you step forward into the thing that He's told you to do. The modern American church is steeped in carnality. And it's not necessarily evil carnality, but I just want you to know that you're not walking in the Spirit if you're only doing stuff that you can measure with your eyes or see with your eyes and tangibly feel and measure. You know, you've got the support you need, you got the finances you need, we're gonna do it. Or am I strong enough to do this thing? Am I smart enough to do this thing? That is all carnal thinking. You know, the word gets tossed around and people think of it in a horrifying way, but the truth of the matter is 90% of the stuff that gets done in church is done in carnal, fleshly ways. We just do it in our own strength. You know, we kind of, oh, thank you, God gave me the strength to endure this stuff. But the truth of the matter was, you did it in your own strength. And it's not terrible, but let's not kid ourselves that that is faith, because it's not. Faith is stepping out and doing impossible things. I hope that helps alleviate some of the stuff when you hear that term getting tossed around, oh, he's a carnal Christian or whatever. We're all carnal Christians, you know. I'm not exempt. I do lots of stuff in my own power. But I do a lot of stuff in faith. I've done a lot of stuff that people said was impossible. And I want to encourage you to begin to step out in faith too. But not to get discouraged if somebody calls you a carnal Christian. Now, if you're out there holding up strip joints at gunpoint, yeah, I'll maybe rethink your actions. The ray of light here that I want to really emphasize is, one, I'm not trying to just throw the church under the bus and say everything they're doing is in their own flesh, even though a lot of it is. And I'm not trying to discourage people that aren't seeing the impossible done in their lives. What I am saying is, even though you don't see it in your lives, it is totally within your grasp to do it. All you got to do is partner with the Holy Ghost and believe. Spend time with the Holy Ghost. It's not you doing it, it is the Holy Ghost. And He's done everything. If you want to go raise the dead, get about it, because the Holy Ghost knows exactly how to do it. He's done it thousands of times. And so I just want to encourage everybody. I don't care how new of a believer you are or how long you've been sitting in a church doing everything you've ever done in your own flesh. It's never too late to trust God and step out for the impossible. And don't feel like you have to wait for a thunderbolt from heaven and handwriting on the wall to direct you. Sometimes God's just waiting for you to do something, and He wants to encourage you in the impossible. So be encouraged, get out there, believe God, trust God, do the impossible things. Be blessed.